So what we're going to be talking about today is really the innovation scorecard for 2026. What are the crucial data points that you need to make these really important decisions for your business? How do you create products that shoppers are going to love, but are backed by data so that they won't fail? That's the ultimate goal, right? Don't fail. So this is what we think of here at the Jungle Scout, on the Jungle Scout Cobalt side, as our Amazon brand health scorecard. So you can see there's a lot to it, but there are so many elements to brand health and success on Amazon, right? So you've got here revenue growth, unit growth, and ASP growth. This is all how you measure yourself against your category performance. You'll notice here it says category index. It's how are you performing versus how the category is performing. And then of course we've got distribution, another critical part of being successful on Amazon. Who's taking your buy box? What are they winning with? How do you stay in control of this? Pricing, all of the different elements of pricing. How do you find what your pricing power is? What are like the 3P price competition in your market? And then of course you've got your conversion funnel at the bottom. How are you managing your spend? How are you getting people to convert on your products? What's really the measurement of your marketing success? But today what we're really going to be talking about and honing in on is this middle piece, this assortment and innovation piece. And that's why I'm super excited that we have our Chief Operating Officer, Tom, on the call with us. So Tom, I'm going to let you do a little intro and then you kick it back to me.
Happy to. So good morning, I think for most of us, afternoon for some of us. Great to be here. As Hillary mentioned, my background is largely in a variety of consumer goods and retail spaces. About 20 years of experience across Nielsen, Spins, and a few consulting gigs. So I've been with Jungle Scout now for almost 2 years, and during that time, we've made a pretty intentional pivot to steer our data and insights toward more growth-oriented use cases. And so I think that structure that Hillary just flashed is intended to be more of a roadmap for growth on Amazon. We realize that Amazon can be messy when it comes to figuring out how to understand those things and make those kinds of decisions. So there's lots of things you can do with Jungle Scout data. We'll talk a little bit about innovation today, and excited to dive into that.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that. I'm really excited to dig into really the heart of today's presentation. Before we get there, we're going to set the stage a little bit. And as part of that, I thought I would introduce myself. So I'm Hillary. I'm our Vice President of Marketing here at Jungle Scout. If you've seen one of our webinars in recent months, you've probably seen my face a few times. So sorry for popping up in your inbox all the time, but I just think that we have a lot to share, and we're really in an interesting place for where our product is pivoting and where our content is going. So, if you're new to Jungle Scout, stay tuned. But if you've been with us for a long time, really pay close attention to the new things that we're sharing. We definitely have a new lens on things like innovation, product research, market share ownership, advertising and marketing. This is really the place if you want to be at the forefront of some of these real levers that you need to pull to be successful on Amazon. And with that in mind, Amazon is a revenue growth channel. If you are launching new products, this is a place that you can launch them. They're ideal. It's an ideal discovery platform for shoppers. It is both a discovery and purchase platform, which makes it so essential for being an ecosystem for innovation. So of course, Amazon, one of the top most visited sites in the USA, fourth most visited site with 2.7 billion monthly site visits, according to SimilarWeb. And then of course, they've got almost 700 billion in net sales revenue worldwide. And then Amazon is the, what do they call it? 500-pound gorilla, 1,000-pound gorilla in the space. They own almost 40% of e-commerce market share across the internet. And then a bit about us. So I say when you think Amazon data, you think Jungle Scout. It's easy for me to say that working at Jungle Scout, but Jungle Scout invented Amazon Intelligence. Amazon intelligence platforms did not exist before Jungle Scout. We were first to market in this space. We launched our Chrome extension through our awesome founder, Greg Mercer, in 2015. That Chrome extension quickly grew into an entire suite of products. It's now actually grown into an entire suite of platforms. We have 4 different data delivery service model and 2 different platforms for 2 different specific types of sellers. We have 11 times more GMV coverage than any other provider. We have access to data for 600 million plus products across 24 categories on Amazon, and we have 10 years worth of data. Having 10 years worth of data to refine and model and test and actually have in front of customers, be ingesting customer data, using that to measure our estimates. All of that has made Jungle Scout the most accurate data provider in the space. So if you were looking for accurate, reliable Amazon data, you are going to think about Jungle Scout. And this is really the data behind revenue driving decisions. Today, we're going to talk about our Cobalt platform. We've done really deep research onto the success of our Cobalt brands. On average, year-over-year Amazon revenue growth for our Cobalt customers is 28%. That's huge. The majority of them are outpacing category growth in each of the primary categories that they sell in. And again, I will harp on the accuracy one more time. We have 20% more accurate sales estimates than our closest competitor. And you don't have to look too far to see Jungle Scout is fairly well decorated and recognized in this space. So if you're looking for data that you can trust, you are in the right place. And we're going to give you a real in-depth view of what that data looks like as we go through. But without further ado, Tom, it's your turn. I would love to walk through the scorecard.
All right, perfect. Well, we'll do a little academic exercise here, and then we'll show some more interesting real-world examples. So the scorecard that Hillary teed up is effectively our granular mapping of all the data that Hillary mentioned to a fairly standardized view of how to manage brand growth. And so this decision tree, or this growth tree here, is anyone who's worked in the CPG space has seen before. It basically says like, hey, there's 2 ways to grow. You can either charge more by raising prices, or you can sell more by driving volume. And then there's 3 primary use cases. Now the complexity of those use cases starts to get interesting in a second, but there's really only 3 things you can do to drive those things. One is what you would call distribution. And in Amazon, that's a function of your 1P, 3P footprint and how you're managing control of authorized and unauthorized sales activity. There's innovation and assortment, so that drives velocity, right? Do I have a product, and that's what we'll talk about today, do I have a product that is simpatico with consumer demand? And there's all sorts of data points to triangulate to make that decision evident. And then the final thing is pricing, right? So that's obvious. There's lots of things you need to understand in terms of your pricing power and elasticity relative to your competitors. But for today, we're going to talk about what I think is the most complex and therefore interesting of those 3, which is how do I understand if I have a product that's going to grow on Amazon? So if you look, I have control of this. So
you have the power.
Have the power. Once I harness this power, we'll be ready to go. Flashing back up, we'll just spend a second on this. What's useful to understand is all the data that you have available to understand each use case. And so again, just zooming in on that assortment and innovation use case, you need to understand how many new products have been launched, how that's driving growth for various brands that have launched those products, what is the consumer feedback on those products, so quality ratings, reviews, and what is it about those products that is resonating with the consumer? And that's usually found through the great detail that's provided through ASIN descriptions, ingredients, titles, all the text that's available and also hard to capture and distill. That's what we do for you, right? Like we have access to all that data across, as Hillary mentioned, 600 million products, which if you do your research is a lot more products than most folks are paying attention to. So if you really want to understand where disruption's happening, the distillation of that data is really, really important. So diving a little bit further into innovation, we like to talk about innovation in the context of what we call like a full funnel viewpoint. And so that's illustrated here, which is to say, you'll get signals on what's succeeding and what's not at various stages of consumer engagement. That starts with demand through keyword research. So we track every single keyword on Amazon. And so we're able to understand really quickly what are consumers searching for, which starts to give you a flavor for what they could be interested in purchasing. We then track that through revenue. And we'll show you some examples of this, but mapping the themes of keywords to the themes of revenue takes a lot of data and a lot of insight. And we've been able to simplify that to give you a little bit more a view in terms of where to place your chips, so to speak, in terms of your assortment footprint on Amazon. Innovation really starts to get interesting after that, right? So intuitively, right, people are looking for niche products. Those products get popular, those products sell. But then how do the underlying themes of those products start to expand beyond where they started? So what we'll show you today are some examples of how a certain innovation element within a specific category starts to expand into other categories. And so this is where it gets really exciting on Amazon, because as you know, there's varieties of categories and subcategories that you're measured against, but there's all sorts of adjacencies that come with that too. And so the extent that you can have a viewpoint into those adjacent subcategories starts to give you an idea on expansion. And you'll also start to understand different competitive footprints within those categories that we talk about as well. And then finally, right, as those products move into new categories, those categories grow, and you start to see entirely different innovation opportunities. So I know that's very academic. Let's talk through some real world examples, which I'm sure will be a little bit more entertaining. So we're going to talk about collagen and peptides. What is a peptide? I heard of peptides. It took me a little bit of research to figure out exactly what they are. They are effectively amino acids, and they primarily entered the market through collagen. And so that became a supplement trend about 10 years ago, right, the 2015 timeframe. It really started to explode by 2020. What's interesting is now that collagen has proven that use case, amino acids have been capitalized on from a variety of categories. Now, I understand this. My wife works in the supplement space. I know a little bit about that, so I can talk about collagen. All this other stuff, facial serums, eye treatments, I'm not exactly sure how peptides are used there. Maybe Hillary is more of an expert on that than I am. But the insight that is worth understanding here is at your right. And so what this is showing are category shares of peptides as an innovation theme. So for example, in the prior period here, which is in the 2024 timeframe, around 54% of all peptide-focused products came through collagen. Collagen is still growing, but as a share of where peptides are making an impact, that share has declined. It's now 45% of the peptide innovation space. What's interesting is other categories like facial serums, et cetera, are starting to capture some of that peptide share. And that's where the innovation opportunity is, right? So do I have a facial serum, for example, that's capitalizing on that peptide communication point? That's something that we'll want to dive into, and we'll show a little bit about that on the following slides.
Yeah, I can't help but feel like I'm maybe responsible for taking away some of that market share and reallocating it to beauty, because like I just keep buying these products because I'm a victim of these amazing trends that occur and explode on Amazon.
So this is, I mean, what's cool about this is the definition of innovation, right? Like you have a consumer trend, and you have all sorts of people and all sorts of products, all sorts of brand managers trying to capitalize on that. So like, let's figure out how to execute and make that successful. And that's where we zoom back. So this is zoom out. Let's zoom back into each of those stages of innovation. And we can start to show you some of those signals that give you the information to do that. So again, the first signal comes through nascent consumer demand, which is tracking keywords. As I mentioned before, we track just about every keyword you could be interested in. We have the ability to categorize that by these themes, which is really important. And so what we've done at the right here is basically lumped together all peptide-themed keywords over the last 2 years. And you'll see that line chart really starts to explode towards the beginning of 2025, where by now you're getting about 4x the search interest for peptides in general. Now, that's a signal. What you want to be able to do is start to dive into that a lot deeper and see like what's happening at the category level. And as we'll talk about in a second, how that's driving revenue. We'll use 2 examples here. So as I mentioned, peptide serum and peptide cream, 2 products I don't think I've used, but those particular products are also capitalizing on this trend. You'll see a 21% and 40% relative uptick. This is just over the last 90 days. So I'm sure these categories have also ridden this wave for 2 years, but just in the last 90 days, pretty significant uptick in terms of folks searching for peptides. That's really important to understand, right? If you're trying to gain share in a category, you need to understand what consumers are looking for. Now, let's look at where the rubber meets the road on revenue. So it's good to understand what people are looking for. It's more important to understand, am I actually going to be able, are people actually going to convert on some of these things? And in the case of peptides, the data says yes, but you'll see here again, this is just all peptide product revenue, all peptide themed revenue on Amazon, again, over the last 2 years. That's increased by 120% between 2024 and 2025. So two things that are really interesting here. One, you're not going to find another provider that can aggregate all of that thematic data in a way that connects keywords to revenue. So being able to understand search through intent and purchase within a thematic category is really, really a new way of looking about innovation on Amazon. And so that's what our data does for you. The way we're able to do that is through the 600 million products, again, we track. So you should ask other folks how many products they track, but if you're not tracking as many products as us, you're going to miss a lot of this when it comes to the impact of innovation that is actually materializing. So you'll see here, again, pretty significant growth, 120%. What's really important is that's against a 5% growth rate for the overall category. And again, if you recall the scorecard, that's the first thing you need to understand. It's not just about growth, it's about growth versus the category. And you can dive into all sorts of subcategories within beauty and personal care. You can dive into serum creams and others, but what that says is, like, this is really something that's exploding. It's something that you need to be thinking about if you're operating in any health and beauty category. Just to close the book on that, you'll see the two examples that we've been tracking. So what's interesting here is their sales volume, 57% increase and 66% increase, is actually a little bit higher than the search increase we saw on the previous slide, which does suggest there's devil in the detail on conversion power. We track those data points as well. We won't show them here, but you'll be able to track everything from search through conversion. And in these categories, they're doing a good job of capitalizing on that consumer intent. All right, so we've talked about creams and serums and peptides for a little bit. One other thing I'll just note before we go on to expansion into other categories is you want to be able to guide, you want to be able to inform yourself as much as possible on the actions you want to take within each competitive set. And so you may say, hey, creams and serums, we're good at that. Let's think about entering those categories. Well, then you need to understand who is competing there. What's the market share concentration? What are the price points I need to think about to be competitive? And all that data is available through us. And this is just an example of how to look at that, where, in the cream space, you'll see it's a little bit more concentrated. So you're really going to have to think about, like, what do Olay and CeraVe sell? What are they pricing their individual ASINs at? Let's take a deep dive into their top 10 ASINs. Can I design something that competes with that? In the serum space, you're going to want to do that again with Medicube and Olay, but there's a little bit more fragmentation here, which does generally mean you have the ability to disrupt the category a little bit more. So again, just an example of some of the research you want to do when you've identified an opportunity. All right, a couple of other innovation examples to showcase here. So this is where it starts to get really interesting. And one thing that's cool about how we package our data is we don't limit the category data that you have access to. So if any user of Jungle Scout now gets access to category and subcategory level data, really across Amazon, regardless of where they sell today. So that expansion use case, it's really easy to start to explore. So again, in the context of peptides, regardless of what category you're in today, you want to know here are 6 other categories that are capitalizing on this theme really, really well. So serums is growing 172% on a unit basis year over year. Sort of lip balms, facial toners, hair treatments, eye masks, body lotions. All of these products are using peptides in their communication and ingredient structure. And so, to the extent you manufacture one of these, you can start to think about other areas that you can expand into. The other thing I'll note, and these are just a couple of examples here, but as you do your research, we do go down the ASIN level and the variant level now in terms of what's driving this growth. So you can dig into, hey, what's our 72% of eye serum treatments? Let me see the top 10. You can dig into like exactly how they're positioned. And then you can start to really refine your product design and assortment against competitors that way. Hillary, have you used these products? Are these ringing a bell for you?
Yeah, a few of those are ringing ringing a bell for me. One of the things that we see all the time is this brand Medicube has come out in the last like year or so and just like exploded on Amazon. They're cleaning up market share everywhere. They're really, I think it's a Korean beauty product, which is a huge, trend that's also happening on Amazon right now. But it's really influencer driven, and just seeing the way that they are like going into like every one of the skincare categories and cleaning up market share is really incredible. They've like a super disruptive pricing strategy, really edgy marketing. I love following their brand. So it's neat to see them up here.
Perfect. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys one more thing here, and this is building on what we just saw, different categories and different examples of products that are driving thematic growth. In this case, for peptides in those categories. It's interesting to look across the innovation funnel, and the way we took a look at that was to say, like, here are the number of ACEs again across Amazon for any peptide themed product. And here's the ASP. So the ASP is in orange here, and the number of ACEs is in blue on the right. And so you'll see that the number of products has quadrupled over the last 2 years, really by virtue of the fact that a lot of categories are capitalizing on this. You'll see ASP, again, across all those categories is declining. So that's a function of a market getting a little bit more competitive. Well, what does that mean for you? Well, it means, there's no perfect point to say I'm going to commit to an innovation strategy, but you can start, you think about left to right, it starts to paint a picture about things you want to start to pay attention to, and opportunities really to start to make decisions to act. So, if you started on the left there, you'll see, hey, that blue line, purple line is going up a little bit. This is a trend I should dive into, and I can figure out what product I'm most positioned in, what category I'm most positioned to succeed in. As that starts to accelerate, well, you're starting to miss the boat a little bit. It's going to get harder and harder. But you'll also start to see, like, hey, if I'm going to be successful, here are the people who are winning. Here's the price points that they're winning with, and here are the specific products that they're succeeding with. And so as that nexus starts to happen, right, that's your cue to start to dig a little bit deeper into ASIN and variant level detail to decide if that's something you're prepared to compete with. Yeah. It also gives you a little bit of predictive capability as it continues to grow. Go ahead.
Yeah, this I am so fascinated by this case study and like the data that it's showing about expansion and how that kind of like virality of specific products can really disrupt the market. So this particular slide, a lot of it's focused on like the lip balm product, these like lip balms containing peptides, which have gone so viral in the last few years. I know that I've paid way too much for like maybe 3 different brands that have these. And I'm like, okay, why do I have this? Why do I need this? I love it, but where is this demand coming from? And brands are actually still trying to get in on this market, especially if they're already selling in adjacent categories. A really good example that I saw just last week is Moroccan Oil. They're like a real like leader in the hair care space. They launched a peptide lip balm product. I think it was actually last week that it launched. And they did not launch it at the higher end price point. They launched it, see how the average price plummeted from $32 to $22 a unit. They actually just launched their product coincidentally at $22 a unit, probably because they're seeing like, hey, I can't come into the market with a $32 product anymore unless I'm like a really high upmarket product, because the competition is just so high and the market is just so saturated. There's still an appetite for it, but like you kind of can lose some pricing power if you're not riding that like first wave of innovation.
100%. So we talked a little bit earlier about all the data points that you can start to score innovation against, but I think there's a more simplified way to digest it. So what's nice is the way that we've built Cobalt, there's basically dashboards for you to answer each of these questions. You think about this as a checklist. These are the things that progressively get you more and more confident that the product that I'm developing is positioned to succeed and capitalize on it. Consumers are interested in buying. And so it starts at the top, right? Does this, do the keywords that I'm seeking to target have sustained search volume improvements? You can track that very easily in our tool. You want to move down the list and you say, well, is that search driving revenue, right? What what specific products are driving growth within categories, and is that growth, again, relative to the subcategory or category, exceeding that? So it's not just riding the wave of the category, it's a really differentiating strategy. Two things that are important. One, it's making sure you have access to an accurate view of the category and understand that. And then two, can I start to customize my view of my competitive set in a way that's tailored to the innovation theme that I want to focus on? And again, that's where you'll find really kind of cutting edge insights with Jungle Scout, is we can start to do that, in this case with peptide, but really in any other thematic definition across different categories. So you're not limited to how Amazon looks at it, you're limited to how the consumer looks at it. That's the next question you want to answer. Then you want to, as I touched on, if you've identified a revenue opportunity, you need to look at the market. So you need to say, who's succeeding there today? How much share do they have? And who am I going to capture share from? So in a fragmented environment, it's easier to capture share if you just differentiate. In a more concentrated environment, you're going to need to start to drill down into the specific ACs that are winning those market leaders and start to figure out how can I specifically price and thematic differentiation against those types of variants. Moving down the list, this is where proof of concept will already have been established with revenue, but there are other categories I can do well. Maybe I've figured out that I can succeed in one of these categories, but there's other nascent categories where this is just starting to take off, and maybe I can get ahead of that with some of the viewpoints that I have today in the current category that I'm looking at. And then again, once you've sort of mapped the landscape of innovation across categories and subcategories, I touched on this earlier, but you're going to want to start to drill down and say, like, what products are succeeding? How's the pricing doing? It's the rest of that scorecard, right? Are there 3P sellers that are disrupting me? What's my optimal 1P, 3P mix? How do I price, and how do I launch my product? So if you can answer these questions with some level of confidence, you're going to have a pretty data-backed approach that says what I'm building, the product that I'm creating, is going to do pretty well on Amazon. Keller, anything you would add to that?
No, I think this is so thorough, but one thing I wanted to say is, this is in a scorecard format, and we will be sending this out to everyone who's registered for the webinar. So if you're looking at this and you're like, oh shoot, I got to write this down, I got to take a screenshot, don't worry, we will be sending it out after, so you will be able to rewatch this and peruse at your leisure. We also have a lot of content related to innovation. We have a dedicated comprehensive innovation report. I'll be dropping a few links here before the end of the webinar. So there's lots more content that you can explore on this topic. All right, so that brings me to a little offer. It wouldn't be a webinar if we weren't promoting something that benefited everyone else on the call too. So we are offering, everything that we showed today was from our Cobalt platform. We're offering 15% off Cobalt packages through the end of January. It's only for folks who've registered for this webinar, and it's only for new customers. So if you are interested in taking advantage of that offer, you're going to scan this QR code and then go through our demo flow. Let us know that it was the webinar that sent you. Whenever you get to connect with someone, I will be keeping an eye on everyone who comes through there as well, making sure that I can tie the thread of webinar to demo fill, just to make sure that you can get that offer and take advantage of that offer. And before we get too far into the Q&A, I did drop a question in the chat. I haven't seen any responses yet, but beauty is really one of the most dynamic categories on Amazon. And one of the things that we're noticing, and I think it was so present in the case study that Tom shared, is that formulations are really crossing category lines. Like things that are emerging in grocery are starting to merge with beauty, they're merging with health and household. And like all of these three categories have kind of formed this like trifecta for like innovation and formulations. So we have a probably the biggest report that we've ever done on this category. We have a really comprehensive health, beauty, and wellness report that is coming out next week. It's going to have case studies like this. It's going to have a lot of like early trend signals, formulation trends, etc. on all three of these categories. So even if you're not using Jungle Scout, you can use the information in this report to help inform some of your innovation decisions and really like peel back the layers on some of these things if you are interested in expanding into some of these categories, or if you're currently selling in any of these categories. So you're registered for the webinar here, but we'll make sure that we get that sent out to everyone. One thing that I like to do on these calls, and I'll do this before we pop into the Q&A, is this email address here, marketing@junglescout.com, this goes directly to me. So if you are interested in getting an early copy of that report that's coming out next week, please drop me an email and I will personally send you a copy. So without further ado, question time. We always like to leave lots of time for questions. So if you have any, don't hesitate. I know I have one, selfishly, if I can kick it off, which is, Tom, you covered a lot of like market and like category level data, but like, is it enough if I just look at like individual products to decide where to take my innovation next?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And it really starts to crystallize the distinction between Cobalt and some of our other offerings. The answer is really no, right? Like, so the scorecard approach doesn't totally work with confidence if you start at the bottom and say like, oh, here's a product that's cool, I want to be that product. That could work, but you're kind of getting lucky that way, right? Like, you're not really going to be able to forecast an ROI on that investment unless you start at the category level and say like, how much share am I going to take from a product? And that share is a function of a deep understanding of the competitive set. And that competitive set is not just necessarily how Amazon classifies it. It's all products that engage across the theme that you're trying to succeed with. So what Cobalt does that our legacy product does not do is it gives you all that competitive insight. That's the difference between trying to get started on Amazon and trying to grow as an established seller on Amazon is the depth of competitive insight. So you really do need to start with a view against the category and a deep understanding of who your primary competitors are.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think that makes so much sense. If you're just looking at one little corner of the market, you're going to miss so much, especially given how massive some of these categories are, right? Health and household is the biggest category on Amazon by a long shot. So you definitely want to be careful if you're trying to innovate into that space and you're only looking at a little piece of it. All right, any more questions? None so far. Maybe one more from me then. How much do you think like this 1P 3P split matters when it comes to innovation? Like, is that a red flag you should watch out for if there is a lot of 3P competition?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, 3P sellers tend to be smaller sellers, 1P sellers tend to be larger sellers. And so you're going to have very different competitive dynamics within any innovation opportunity across 1P, 3P. So, it may be, again, in the peptides case that we talked about, there's probably 1P sellers and 3P sellers that have figured that out. But my guess is that peptides trend for most of those categories started with some disruptive 3P sellers that found a new product and wanted to get started on Amazon. And then those larger 1P sellers started tracking that through some of the data that we just talked about and said, well, we can do that too. We need to capitalize on it. So when it comes to innovation in particular, it's really important that you have like the long tail view on 3P disruption so that you're flagging those trends a little bit earlier than they necessarily hit the larger 1P sellers.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. I was getting distracted as you're chatting because the Q&A is starting to blow up, which we love to see. There's always some 11th hour questions. So I'll go through. I see, Jake, thank you for surfacing some of these for us. One question from Stephanie: are you planning on having a report on the grocery and gourmet foods category? Stephanie, this is an amazing question. One thing that you will actually find in the report that we have coming out next week, so definitely please drop me an email to marketing@junglescout.com so I can send you a copy, is this report that we have coming out has a lot of data that is specific to grocery and gourmet food. It's not grocery and gourmet food specific, but there is a lot of crossover between that and the health and wellness and the beauty stuff that we're going to be talking about. So you'll definitely get some value out of that, especially if you are selling or with a brand that's in the grocery and gourmet food space. But we love the grocery and gourmet food space. We work with a ton of brands in this space, and we are always, looking to pull out more data there and get people really excited about how to use Cobalt for those categories. So if there is specific data that you're looking for too, feel free to pop that into your email to me. Feel free to reach out, and happy to connect you with some custom data. And then I see a few more here that just came through. Let me just flip back here. Oh, I keep losing connection. Will there be a replay? Yes, there will. So because you've registered for this, we will be sending out a recording of this right after the webinar. It should come to your inbox like within a few hours. Okay, the QR code was not scanning. Oh, sorry about that. I did just pop a link to the demo fill there. So that was what the QR code was supposed to link to. So definitely please use this link. It will take you to the right place so that we can track you for your Cobalt offer. And what else here? Okay, apart from the innovation segment, what other measures of data is available? Pricing, market share, comparative data sets, etc. Tom, I'll let you take
all the above and more. So this was again a very specific focus on one use case, which I think is very interesting. Pricing is a big use case that we have lots of data and dashboarding built for, as is your 1P, 3P, and buy box impact across your distribution choice on Amazon. That all levels up into some very deep insights around market share and category growth. And we have obviously the ASIN level impacts on promotional and pricing details as well. So my suggestion to you, is to get a demo of Cobalt. Like what we'll do is we'll connect your account and we'll show you in real time what that could look like for you. And there is a very guided approach that follows the scorecard that we showed earlier, which is to say, like, let's understand how I'm doing versus the category and what my growth opportunities are. And then what do I want to do to act? Maybe pricing is your best bet, right? Maybe you're just priced too high, and that's an opportunity for you to make a big impact right there. Innovation tends to be something that all folks are focused on. But before you dive into anyone, because this is a laundry list of use cases, that guided view that Cobalt gives you starts to focus, what's going to have the biggest impact across all the actions we can make.
Yeah, that's awesome. That was a great question. It's always great when you can answer the question with, yes, we have that too. We have everything that you could be looking for and more in that regard. Okay. I don't see any other questions coming through, though we still have time. We still have lots of time if anyone has any more. Again, if you did, do you have any insight on digital versus physical pricing for media and books? So that's one of the areas that we don't cover is the digital books. So we don't offer data on the Kindle ebook store. So that would be one area that we unfortunately can't help you out with. Just that data is in general harder for us to get and estimate on the Amazon side. So that's one of the categories that we don't serve. Thank you, Laurel, for that question. Any more questions coming through? I always like to do going once, going twice. And if you did try to scan that QR code and it wasn't working, if you see over our faces on the screen, there is a button that says click here to demo Cobalt. If you click that and fill in the form, we will find you, connect with you, and then make sure that our sales folks know that you are someone who is looking for a demo and that you came from this webinar. Question from Anthony R. Can Cobalt discover new categories, whether through keyword search trends or newly launched products that are similar? Tom, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, happy to jump in on that. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit earlier. So when you say new categories, I'm assuming you're thinking about where are the areas that I can sort of expand my current footprint into, and each one of those data points across that innovation funnel we talked about starts to point in that direction, right? So keywords, again, leading indicator, you start to see search trends and themes that will steer you to success within any given category. You'll be able to connect that across categories to see if that's something that, in the case of peptides, has impact beyond where you're currently looking today. What's really nice about that is again, the customization of Cobalt allows you to start to combine your competitive set in a way that's more innovation theme oriented than predefined Amazon category oriented. You do it both ways, but that starts to unlock additional addressable market that you may not have been focused on earlier because you didn't realize that your product had the ability to succeed against competitors they weren't necessarily looking at. And as I mentioned again, I think previously, with any Cobalt subscription, you get category level access across Amazon. So you'll be able to raise that flag regardless of where you start with your current footprint.
Yeah, awesome. I did see one more question come through, or actually two more. We love it. How much insights on, or how do you get insights on how much ad spend competitors are spending? So this is one of the areas where we don't actually have data that says, competitor X, Y, and Z is spending this much on Amazon, but you can see what target bids should be like based on how competitive certain keywords are. You can also see how competitor ad spend is impacting shelf performance. So Cobalt offers a digital shelf insights tool that shows you like position weighted, ad weighted, all of the data that you need to know to see where your competitors are performing on shelf and how they're performing on shelf, whether it's their organic presence or their paid advertising presence that's contributing to their position on shelf and their clicks and conversion as a result of that. So we don't necessarily, we can't necessarily show to Pepsi like, hey, this is how much Coke is spending on Amazon, because we wouldn't be able to share that kind of competitive level data, but you can kind of back your way into the data in a few different ways. Hopefully that answers the question. Not sure if you have anything to add there, Tom.
No, I think you covered it. The tangent to that as well is we work with a variety of agency partners on Amazon that do some of more of these execution focused content, creative, and ad management with our insights. They may be able to provide a little bit more depth on that. So if that's something you're really specifically interested in, we can start to talk about referrals as part of a comprehensive package that could help you with that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, those ad partners, they have a ton of resources and they're like real subject matter experts on the advertising side. Oh, getting even more questions. This is amazing. Okay, let's see here. Are you able to create your own dashboards with the data available on the platform, or are they standardized? Can these dashboards export to PowerPoint, Excel, etc.?
I love Jade's questions because
yes.
The answer is always yes. So Jade, we need to get you a demo, but yeah, for sure. So what's a little bit unique about Cobalt is it is a good balance of sort of guided growth insights. And so we talked a little bit about that today, which is there are some places you should start to look at to guide your investigation on Amazon, because Amazon can be complex. But Jungle Scout's always been kind of prided itself on customization. And so you're able to construct not just custom dashboards, but custom segments, whether that's around an innovation theme or a different category that allows you to dive deeper into what you're interested in. Both are really important. You can build a 1,000 different dashboards, so you want to have a guided view on where to start that investigation. But the customization in Cobalt is very powerful, and we do offer export that, as you mentioned as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I did see another question. I don't know if this was part, Jade, maybe this was the second half of your question. It's the chat's not telling me who wrote it, but do you offer category benchmark reports? This is a great question. So in a few ways we offer this. So our category performance functionality will give you a benchmark for how the category is performing, how the categories within, or the subcategories within those parent categories are performing, which really gives you a benchmark and an understanding of, hey, what was the last 6 months of growth in beauty and personal care, for example, and then where did the growth shake out amongst the top subcategories within that category? So that's really what you can get from a category benchmarking standpoint. If you're talking more about like on the content side, one of the things I'll tee up is that in early March, we're going to be coming out with what we're calling the Amazon Benchmark Report, which is going to be like a really in-depth report on benchmarks at each category level. So like what is average like revenue growth, unit growth, new ASINs entering each category. It's going to be a really big like insight-driven guide that's going to help offer some of this kind of data at scale, and it's going to be for free. So that's something that we're going to offer on the marketing side. Anything to add there, Tom, on category performance?
You hit it all there. It's available in reporting, and you can track it in real time in Cobalt as well. So
yeah. Yeah, I love the category level data. Seeing how it shakes up around Christmas is always super interesting too. Just seeing how like the home the home goods category just like explodes with all sorts of categories that, you know, sharply spike and then fall off for another 9 months. All right. Okay, thanks, Jade. We are super happy to have you on. Would love to have you in for a demo. So definitely make sure to fill that form out and we will find you, or just send me an email and I'll connect you to the right person. Happy to chat with you anytime. All right, we are coming down to the end of our time. Any more questions before I count us off? Going once, going twice. I don't see anything else coming through. I don't think we missed anything, but if we did, I'm going to share it one more time for posterity, marketing@junglescout.com. You can email this email address and I will either get back to you myself or I will connect someone to you. And thank you so much for joining. This was a fantastic call, really thoughtful questions, case study data. Tom, thanks for sharing that. That was great. And yeah. Happy New Year, everybody. I think I can still say that. We're still in the statute of limitations on New Year's, so.
we get the rest of the week, so yeah.
Yeah, perfect. I'll take it. Awesome. Okay, thanks, everybody. Take care.